Okay, and I see we have 46 attendees, so I think that's probably most of the group that we're expecting. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Life After Kings Thanatology event. Although we're not presently on campus, I did want to start this morning by acknowledging that Kings is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Wuk, and Attawandaron peoples. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. Our event today is run in partnership with Alumni and Development, Student Affairs, and the Thanatology program. Our goal is to give students an idea of the types of careers our alumni have and how they got there. We hope you'll use this information wisely as you give some thought to your own life after Kings. And now I would like to introduce our guests. So I am going to start with Mark. Mark Shelvach completed his Honors Bachelor of Arts in Thanatology and Philosophy at King's in 2017. Mark is now a college instructor and faculty member in the Gerontology Interprofessional Practice Program within the School of Community Studies at Fanshawe College. Mark teaches thanatology to future social and healthcare professionals and is also a certified thanatologist through the Association of Death and Education Counseling. Mark also graduated from Western University with a master's degree in women's studies and feminist research and has received over $25,000 in competitive research grants and scholarships. And he has recently begun actively publishing in the field of thanatology. Good morning, Mark. Next, I'll introduce Barbara. Barbara, if you want to give a wave there. Barbara Saunders received a social service worker diploma from Lambton College and registered with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers in 2007. She then graduated from King's in 2010 with a degree in thanatology at the age of 54. Barbara currently operates a private practice called Healing a Heart's Loss as a grief counselor. She also provides grief counseling for Ontario works with a local medical health unit, to provide a suicide loss support group, and provides grief supports at a First Nations reserve and offers non-insured health benefits with Indigenous Services Canada. For the past 7 years, Barbara has worked part-time at Canadian Mental Health Association Middlesex as the bereavement support coordinator. In this role, she supports grieving individuals affected by suicide loss through individual counseling, support groups, and resources. And next we have Rachel. Rachel Park completed a double major in thanatology and criminology at King's in 2016. Prior to coming to King's, she studied police foundations at Fanshawe College. She worked full-time during her studies as a security guard for London Health Sciences Centre at Victoria and University Hospitals, often working with mental health patients and getting a lot of practical use from her thanatology education. Upon graduating from King's, Rachel was offered a position with the London Police Service as a 911 dispatcher. Rachel is currently off duty, enjoying her maternity leave. Good morning to all of our guests. And I will get our questions started. And Mark, I think I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us about your time at King's?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. I had an amazing time at King's. Honestly, it's a place that's it's really close to my heart because I actually found the love of my life at King's. And we actually just recently had our 6-year anniversary. And I met my partner, Daniel, in a philosophy of religion class, actually. And yeah, we were just celebrating and, we were reflecting about our great time at King's. So King's is just a really special place, and I met the most amazing people, one being my life partner, but also getting the chance to meet other people who were interested in actually talking about dying and death. I mean, it's such a taboo topic, right? Even in today's world. And King's and the Thanatology program specifically really offered a place for people who had experienced a personal loss to actually investigate this in a more academic and educational way. And what I'm so thankful about King's, and particularly the Thanatology program, is that it taught me how to take the personal and turn it into the professional. And I think many thanatology students, they choose the thanatology program because they've experienced a loss of some kind, whether it's death related or non-death related. And I mean, grief and loss and death, these are all universal phenomenon that we all have to grapple with in our own individual ways, right? So, I mean, I think it's just so spectacular that King's has, to my knowledge, the only undergraduate program in thanatology in the world. And they have amazing faculty who are internationally renowned. And it was just such a rich opportunity to actually learn from them. Yeah, and I mean, I hear though from, I also did my double major in philosophy. And my experience was across the board, King's faculty, they really just care about teaching and they really care about their students, right? And I think that's just such a, it's a really rich place, and not every university prioritizes teaching over something like research, but King's does, and they put their students first. And so I had a fantastic experience at King's. It transformed my life. I'm incredibly grateful for my education. And, you know, honestly, now that I'm done my undergrad, sometimes I really miss it. And I wish I could go back and, you know, sit in Darcy Harris's class, or Carrie Arnold's, or Eunice Gorman's, or John Hang, or, you know, all these other great faculty, and just kind of like just sit in and soak up the wisdom, you know? So yeah, I had a great time at King's, and it really, it was a really positive aspect of my life. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Rachel, how about you? Tell us about your time at King's.
Sorry, just unmute there. Everyone can hear me? Awesome. So I kind of naturally fell into the role of criminology coming from police foundations. And then I didn't do a whole lot of extracurriculars because I was working full time while going there. So I was going through the summers and just trying to get ahead as much as possible. Definitely loved hanging out with people in the library though, and having study groups and bouncing ideas off. And definitely get what you say about possibly sitting in a lecture now with different life experience. You would take the information in a whole different light. Absolutely loved the in-class aspect. Some had to be online, but I loved learning. Really connected with Dr. Carrie Arnold, and just remember sitting in Children in Death and stuff and being like, quoting her all the time. It's something that you can use in your own life. You can use as your loved ones go through losses. And I've got to use it every year of my life since. So.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself.
Okay.
Barbara, what about you? Tell us about your time at King's.
Yeah, I ended up there after Lambton College, and I didn't know what to do with my life. I pretty much stopped it and it went to college. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? So I applied to Western, and thinking, yeah, I'll, if I get accepted, okay, I'll keep going. If not, I'll figure life out. And I got accepted, and I was kind of shocked. And I got a year's credit from Lambton College, so I didn't have to do the full 4 years. And then I applied for the social work program. In that year, there were so many applicants. And my friend who was a year ahead said, in the social work program, she said, even if you had a 98.9 average, you still may not have gotten in because there were so many applicants and they were only accepting about 40 people. And I thought, well, I'm kind of too old for this stuff. And now what do I do? And I had taken a few thanatology courses already. I thought, okay, one door shuts, another opens. So I went down the field of thanatology and loved it. And I thought, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. And when I was there, I remember going into a psychology class, and one of the students, I think it was the first day, and they thought I was the professor. And and I thought, anyway, it was kind of funny. I think I was the only one there with gray hair. And so that was interesting. And it's amazing, you know, when you go back there as a mature student, and everybody was so nice. There was, you know, you blended right in. Nobody said, okay, well, you're old and, you know, you can't do this or you can't do that. Carrying those books around in a backpack, and it just sucked. Those are heavy books. But I didn't do a lot of activities there because I was lived out of town, and university is work. It is a lot of work. And I look at my age and I thought, you know, I'm not going back to do my master's, kind of like how you did, Mark. But life still goes on, and I totally enjoyed it. Met a lot of friends. I still have those connections, and yeah, it was really good. Great. Thanks.
Thanks, Barbara. Before I move on to the next question, I just want to quickly mention for our participants who are viewing that we will have a Q&A towards the end of the program. So if you wanted to put your questions into the Q&A, you can do that at any time, like as questions pop into your mind, and then at the end, we'll get through them all. But yeah, next question from me. Mark, tell us, what are you doing now and how did you get there?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Katrina, I'm a part-time lecturer at Fanshawe College, and I'm a deaf educator. And it's really fantastic. It's been a long journey getting here, to say the least, but it's finally great to be getting paid to do thanatology. And if you are going into the field of education, you will need an advanced graduate degree. That is just, and I don't think you need a graduate degree to work in the field of thanatology, but if you are particularly and specifically interested in going into research or education, you will need an advanced degree. So I just want to speak to that experience, but I do also want to emphasize at the same time, you can work in the field of thanatology without a graduate degree. So for myself, I found that trying to acquire as much research assistant work was really helpful for becoming involved in higher education. That was it was actually working as Dr. Darcy Harris's research assistant that I was able to then eventually evolve into a teaching assistant. And as I evolved into a teaching assistant, I was then able to get teaching experience. And then I was able to actually find a job lecturing and teaching in thanatology, which is this is my passion, right? And I also became a certified thanatologist through the Association of Deaf Education and Counseling. So that's the largest international network of thanatologists around the world. I highly recommend checking out this organization, particularly and checking it out while you're an undergraduate student, because they have some great papers for like student papers that you can like apply for. And that is I think a great way to start engaging with the professional community as a student. And you can actually receive bursaries for doing that. And I think the conference is now online because of COVID, but normally they would actually pay for travel expenses to students who actually won the undergraduate student paper. So it was a way for you to actually go out into the world and into professional academic conferences and start getting some of those experiences. Yeah, so, and I'm sure your other faculty members have also been talking about ADEC. So that's also, I think, a great way and another great resource that for you to check out as a thanatology student. And it was having that certification in thanatology was also really helpful for becoming a faculty member because it's internationally renowned, particularly in colleges and universities across the world. And all of my experience around King's, so to actually apply to become a certified thanatologist, you need educational hours, for example. King's provided me with all of those educational hours. King's provided me with volunteer experiences and also employment opportunities as a student, because I was working as a research assistant as a student, okay? And I was able to actually use that moving forward in my professional career. So if you haven't started thinking professionally about your education and you've just been bathing in all the great knowledge that university can offer you, I think that's a really wonderful thing. But I would also encourage you, you know, especially if you're in entering your third or fourth year into university, to start thinking professionally, how can I become more involved? And for me personally, one way I did that too as a King's student was I started the Thanatology Club. We called it the Than Clan at the time, which is a really cute name. And I don't know if it's like what the state of the current club is, because unfortunately I'm not on Facebook. But like that was a great way that we came together as students, and we started actually getting, you know, professional speakers to come in to talk to people, right? And it was, for me as an undergraduate student, I was, you know, absolutely terrified to stand in front of a group of people. That was one of the safe places that I could actually start doing it as, you know, like a club official, you know, president and official member, that I could start actually get some practice talking in front of people and actually talking about something I loved, which was thanatology. So, I mean, I hope the Thanatology Club is doing well today. And I hope that would be an avenue for you to get involved with. But this is it. You have to start it. This is your education, right? So you have to start thinking about, how can I get the most out of this, right? How can I become involved? What are the skills that I want to develop, right? And I knew from day one, you know, for me, I just loved thanatology. I loved reading thanatology. I loved thinking about thanatology. I loved talking about thanatology, right? And I also loved helping other people, right? I saw how applicable it was. So because I was able to identify these are the things I like about it, I was able to start fostering and developing these skills and kind of carving out some of my own opportunities. And it was all of these opportunities that began in my undergraduate degree and that I carried after my undergraduate degree to get a master's degree, to also get, you know, the TA experience, the RA experience that I was talking about. And it was all of these different rich life experiences around thanatology that I was able to actually get, you know, a job where I could get paid to just talk about thanatology and to like empower people with that knowledge. And it's just like, I think it's just the best job in the world. So yeah, that's my shtick, and I hope it was helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Rachel, what about you? Tell us about what you do now.
So Mark is so amazing and organized and passionate. That was awesome. I went into university with a totally different outlook. I was just kind of like, I have no idea. I knew I had certain passions in certain areas, but I was just looking to explore. And going through the summer in one of the courses, I was like, this children in death sounds cool. Suicide series interventions, I can apply that. I have a passion for policing. And that's how I brought about the second major of thanatology, because I was like, this is really cool. I really like this. And it can be used in any aspect of life or any job, really. So my official title is I'm a communications operator with London City Police. What that is a 911 dispatcher. So I answer 911 calls, get them the appropriate help. So when you call 911, it's police, fire, ambulance, and we transfer you if it is for ambulance or fire. And then if it's police, you talk to me, and then I dispatch the appropriate officers. So I always wanted to help people. I always had a big passion for helping people, specifically in emergency situations. So less of the long-term stuff and more of just like the quick triage of getting somebody some help. So that's kind of perfect for my role. And as far as education to get into dispatch, there is a college diploma for communications. It is viewed with a lot of services right now as an asset and not a requirement. Essentially, they're just looking for diversity, life experience, all of these things. And thanatology was very interesting to them when I applied. I'm sure a lot of you are getting this right now. What's thanatology? Like, you have to explain it to everybody. I mean, I had to Google what Mark teaches. You know, it's really interesting. So it brought a lot of different aspects into my job, and still does. I get to actually help educate senior dispatchers on different wording and things like that, and saying, you know, can we please use completed for suicide instead, like it's not a crime, like things like just little things like that that I've been able to bring to the table there, and it's been really interesting.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Barbara, I know we always have a lot of students who are interested in private practice work. Can you tell us about what it is you do and what that's like?
Yes, not a problem. I think part of what's helped me with the private practice work is also having the social service worker diploma. Ideally, it would be a Bachelor of Social Work, but with that, I'm able to be registered with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers, and was working with different organizations. They've asked for that, but plus they've asked for insurance. So you need errors and omissions and legal liability insurance coverage for private practice. Well, if you're doing it properly. And so they want proof of that. And in order to get proof of that, you need to be registered with the regulatory body. And so that's helped immensely also. And so private practice, so the insurance side of it is one aspect. You know, you're able to write off, like now I'm working from home. So you're able to write off a percentage of your home and heat and, you know, your bills, your utilities and that sort of thing. So that's an extra little bonus there. But in getting into private practice, when I got out of King's, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And we're going back 10 years ago. And at the time, they didn't even have a major program. I was going through, I think you kind of mentioned it, Rachel, going through the summertime for schooling. And I was doing that. That's all I did was school. And what was I going to say with that? Nobody knows about thanatology. So you try to get a job and it's hard because, oh, I know, I was going to say, I was ready to graduate with a double minor in psychology and thanatology. In that summer, I was taking the practicum course through the summer, and Darcy said, you can't graduate if you graduate now, you're done. And I was like, what? And she said, they're bringing in the major program starting September, and they will not let you, she said, I'm pretty sure they won't let you do a double degree in a short period of time like that. So I scrambled to figure out how am I going to go to school for another year, because that wasn't my plan. And so I was one of the first group to graduate with a major in thanatology. And we're going back, yeah, it's been 10 years now. So had that, started private practice and thought, okay, well, how do you get clients? And so when nobody knows about you and nobody knows what thanatology is, so that was an uphill battle. But it was, you know, the supports around me saying, you know, I believe what you do, keep going, keep going. And one thing that has gotten me here is the relationships that I've built over a lifetime and even through King's. So having a higher degree makes it you're able to work for different companies like EAP companies, employee assistance programs through where people work. They're able to hire you and you will be covered under their benefit plans. I'm covered under a couple of companies, but not all of them. And most people pay, you know, a good amount of money to me out of their pocket. And I thought, okay, nobody's going to pay me this. And I tell people, I specialize in grief. I'm not doing marriage counseling. I'm not doing, you know, if you lost your job, I'll do a little bit about that if it comes in with other losses, because when one loss happens, other things just kind of fall into place with that and just make things even more compounded and more, you struggle even harder. But I say I'm strict. I stay tight to grief and loss. And if you want that, then you got it. And I will put you to work. And I tell them that you know, don't pussyfoot around with it. I will put you to work. And I do. You know, you're working if you come to see me, but you don't have to be here for 20 visits. And I'll tell them some days you might feel you've been run over by a truck, but you know, and even especially with suicide loss. So I resigned from CMHA in London the 1st of April. So all of this pretty much transpired when COVID was just coming in. And, you know, it was the right time in my life to do so. And so that's gave me a lot of time to do more courses and stuff, which I did steadily through COVID. I have people coming into my home for private practice. I have enough space that if they want to wear a mask, we wear a mask, and I clean things down. And so I do that. I also before COVID doing the suicide loss support group in St. Thomas through the Central Community Health Center, but that's pretty much stopped because of COVID. And working on the reserve with Indigenous people. So I was invited in there to do work and have been embraced by the community. And part of that was when I talked about building relationships years ago. You kind of work at Fanshawe, Mark. And when I first moved back to this area, I was teaching at Fanshawe College, a couple of courses before I just graduated from university. And the contacts that I made there, they were adult students. And from there, a few years later, that's where the connection came to the reserve. That's where the connection came to Ontario Works, and because they knew me, and I was like, oh wow. So it was pure relationships and walking in integrity. So what I can say to you is, so what was the rest of the question now? What am I doing?
The question was about what do you do now?
Yeah, okay, thanks. So what do I do? I'm busy. It's just crazy. And the reserve is just opening up again because they shut down for COVID. But yeah, and private practice one-on-ones for mostly adults, but the odd time I have children in. And the other thing is when people call, I have resources. So it's not just me. You know, if you're looking for, you've had child loss, you know, where else can you go? Well, you know, you can come see me, but there's Bereaved Families of Ontario. There's, you know, different resources that are available. So I make sure that I give them as much as possible, not just me. So thanks.
Just to add to something that Barbara was just saying there, a lot of people don't know what thanatology is. And just like how she was saying, she has to market herself for her practice. No matter what you're looking to get into with this course, I remember when I took it, a lot of people were into nursing. There's many different avenues. This is very introductory. This is a really good courses, whatever you can do. I know with nursing specifically, you can't take on another major, but to add to your cover letter, to your resume, and just pique their interest in hiring, because it is something so different, and it is this skill that not a lot of people have, to know language, and it can really teach you how to communicate. Because in so many jobs that you don't even really necessarily think of or realize, you are going to be dealing with human emotions and loss and whatever else that might be, difficult conversations. And just to show them, hey, I have training in difficult conversations is ginormous in any world, business, whatever. So definitely make sure that you are marketing yourself to explain what this is.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Can I add to that for Rachel's comment?
Yeah.
When I was working at CMHA, I would take on students from King's when they were doing their placements. And afterwards, I always said, if you need a reference, call me. Like, you know, I will support you. And the one student I had not that long ago, she goes, well, what kind of job can you get with thanatology? And I was like, okay, just a minute. You need to go down the hallway and you need to talk to the girl at the front desk, or you need to go around to this room and you need to talk to this person. And I said, they have their degree in thanatology. I don't know what else they have, but I know they have thanatology, and check it out. And they're working here. They're dealing with mental health concerns. So people with thanatology do get hired. You might have to. That was one thing I'd written down when you gave us our questions, but I'll put that in here now. That CMHA in London recognizes thanatology. Many other places do not, and not all CMHA organizations are the same. And this person lived up north, and she goes, Barb, they don't feel I'm qualified because I have thanatology. And I was like, all right, have them call me. Like, you are qualified for this. Matter of fact, you might even know more than some other people because of this. So anyway, after that, two different people called me because she applied for a few different jobs. and I explained it to them and they're like, oh, and then she called back and she got the job. And then she got another job. So, even if we, as people who have already graduated, are, advocates for those who are coming up behind us, yeah, I think that's our duty to do that. So for anybody out there who thinks, what am I going to do? This degree is valuable. It touches on all aspects of life and on us, all of us. So anyway, just want to say that.
Thank you. Okay. Mark, now I'm really interested to hear from all of you on this question, question 3. I would like to know how COVID-19 has impacted your work. And specifically, I'm wondering if there are any changes that you would see as being improvements to the industry or positive changes in your role.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, online education is exploding right now. So Fanshawe College usually responds in a similar way to Western and King's. This year, and for as long, I don't know how long this is obviously going to last, but I would say higher education in general is going to be going online for probably a pretty long time. Fanshawe College specifically, I wouldn't be surprised if in-classes didn't resume for a really long time. And I mean, it's obviously going to vary from program to program because I mean, some programs, and even with Western too, people have to get into the labs, people have to, there's very hands-on components. But in terms of teaching thanatology, it's something that translates really well onto online learning. Especially with, I mean, so much information around psychoeducation, research, everything like this. It can just, it translates really well to online learning. So, I mean, I've involved my class to try to focus on like a different mix between both like, sure, the community online forum discussion, which I was exposed to as a thanatology student, but also really like starting to think about like evocative individual reflective exercises, because I truly believe that one of the things the pandemic brings, it really brings an opportunity for personal reflection and exploration. This always existed, of course, but now that we have to, physically isolate ourselves and we're all stuck in, our little boxes of houses and apartments or wherever you may be, right? We have a lot more time for introspection. So I really took advantage of this with my class, and I've designed exercises like previously, when I would teach a group of students before in a classroom environment, I would always run a death cafe. And I've been running death cafes since I was actually an undergraduate King student. That's where I started running death cafes, where I really learned how, which is basically just a place where people can eat cake and talk about death, right? And whatever comes up for that person. There's no set agenda, right? So you can just come as you are with all of your life experiences and just talk to other people about this and help remove the social stigma, right? So instead of doing that, I thought, okay, maybe I could run an online death cafe over Zoom or something. Or what if I instead set up more intimate interviews? Because I also have experience within the research realm, specifically around like learning, like in grad school, they really make you always take a lot of research methods course. So I had to take like qualitative research. So I thought, hey, how can I get my students to start actually practicing these skills and having these conversations? So one of the assignments I added was interviews around dying and death, where people had to have these intimate conversations that they would have had in maybe a death cafe, but now more one-on-one with a person. So it was helping them, build up interview skills, ask them about advanced care planning, especially because so many of my students are looking to join the social and health professionals. So, so I mean, as an instructor, going to online was definitely a transition, but I think it provides a lot of opportunities for still like really rich experiential and reflective learning. I also think that, communities can obviously just take place in many forms, including the online format. I think that if you're looking for a career in education, I think online learning is just going to become increasingly more popular. I think one of the main advantages of this too is that now, you know, people can kind of do their education from any place in the world, right? This, I mean, you want to talk about accessibility, right? And social justice, which is a huge, huge component if you are serious about working in the area of grief and loss. You understand that your work as a thanatologist is often directly correlated with also social well-being and also social justice, right? And so I think one of the advantages of online learning is just how much more accessible this is making it in terms of geographical locations. And particularly when you have really unique programs or like topics like thanatology, you know, now people don't have to live in London, Ontario necessarily for them to do this, right? So yeah, I think online learning is probably going to be, I mean, it already existed before, of course, but I think it's just going to continue to explode and grow. So start getting comfortable with technology if you're a little bit older, or maybe you're like me and you know you are a millennial, but technology isn't really an intuitive process for you. So you know, start thinking about, you know, carving out a little time on your schedule that you can start, you know, experimenting with these programs, or you can watch a guide, right? Because and this technological literacy, it's going to, I think, it's just really good to know for a lot of industries, especially education. So I would recommend start exploring that if you haven't already. And I know taking some time out of my schedule to do that made it a lot easier. Like there's this stereotype millennials are supposed to be like amazing technological wizards, but that wasn't true for me. You know, I'm a touchy-feely guy, which is why I got into thanatology, not so much the IT guy. So I think there's definitely some personal transitions and adjustments I've had to like psychologically adjust to. But that's it. You just take the time, right? And I think the beautiful lesson here underpinning all of this is, you know, I really learned how to grapple with uncertainty from my thanatology education, right? And I think that thanatology is now more applicable than ever because, you know, this cosmic uncertainty that we're all experiencing, it always existed, but now it's just become a lot more obvious. And I think there's so many transferable lessons in thanatology to help people really adjust and learn how to respond to, you know, in more of a way that you can bounce back around the pandemic. So I think now's a great time to be a thanatology student. And I think that the world is only going to need more thanatologists, and the world is only going to need more educators around grief, loss, death, dying, bereavement, change, transition, loss adjustment, etc. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Rachel, I know that we had spoken previously and you mentioned that because you're on maternity leave, you're not necessarily in all the changes, but what changes do you see in the industry, or what are you aware of that's happening right now?
Yeah, I can tell you all about giving labor in COVID, but I can't tell you too much about what's going on in the police world. So I did speak with some coworkers to try to get you some information on this. Obviously, our types of calls have changed. You know, we're now getting, my neighbor, I swear they have 10 people over. Okay, Karen, we're not who you call. You know, we'll put them to the right resources. And then screening questions as far as for the officers to show up in the proper protective gear. So we do need to ask those screening questions as well. And we don't wear any masks in our communication room, but to get into the building we do. And we, for a while there, had screening questions as well. Because our desks are so distant, we have so many monitors and you have so much equipment that we're kind of away from each other anyways. So those are the main big changes. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. I would say probably the biggest one is just types of calls and helping people out in that regard.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can imagine the types of calls have changed this year over maybe past themes.
Yeah, that's what my coworker said. She's like, it's not much different except for kind of getting those calls, but you're not supposed to call 911 for telling on your neighbor or anything like that. Obviously, ambulance is going to have the health related stuff. It's going to be a little bit different, but yeah, don't call police on your neighbors.
Thank you. And Barbara, you already kind of touched on some of the changes that you've experienced in your industry. Is there anything that you can tell us about improvements that you see, or positive change, or new doors opening because of what we're experiencing?
Yeah, I was just thinking, well, kind of like Mark has talked about already, the online courses, that's, I think this is great. Once I seem like you, once I figured out how to do all of this technology stuff, and even Zoom, I figured out Zoom. What else? Well, the online for counseling, more people are doing online counseling, and even I've talked to some of my social worker friends, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to figure this out." But even figuring that out is finding secured sites that you can use and that are affordable. Some of them are more from a medical model, which as a counselor, we don't really need all of the stuff that they're offering there. So that was a chore, trying to find something that's not going to cost you $100 a month when you can find it for $50 or $35. And other programs, some are upgrading. So anyway, so that's a challenge, is to find something. So keep that in mind. Needing a secured site, you can't just go on Skype or something. What else? Even here, I've got like a sign on my door before you come in. I've got hand sanitizers out there, stay 6 feet away. Here's the mask if you want one, if you don't have your own. So those are all extra things, but not deal breakers. So when I have clients, I space them out a little further to give me time to, get my notes cleaned up and run around and wipe everything down again and give it time to dry. And yeah, so I think it's better. I find it better. And those opportunities, like say with online courses and online counseling, I think they're going to be better. And so I've done a few, and I could tell people, you get comfortable. You don't have to drive for an hour to see me. You can. And one I was doing, she sat there with her dog, and I said, do you have your Kleenex? Oh, Miranda got her Kleenex and had a cover on her lap, and yeah, she was great, and just sat there in her comfy clothes. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. Thanks. You got your okay.
Hi, thank you. I have one last question for everyone, and we're a little bit close on time, so keep your answers short-ish, but we can address this more in the Q&A as well. My final question: what advice would you give to a current student or a recent graduate who's looking to go into your line of work? Mark.
Yeah, so my advice is simple. My advice is connect to your deepest intentions. This is a difficult field of work to be in terms of no matter whether you're in education or you're in counseling or you're a frontline worker. I mean, you see human suffering, okay? So you really have to know, why are you doing this, right? And really connect to, like, why thanatology? Why death studies? Why grief studies? Why am I here? And I found that in my journey, connecting to that why, and really that meaning, that professional meaning. Why am I doing this? Because honestly, there's other industries where it would be, I think some of the work would be easier. I think, it would be a lot less intense. Like why thanatology? And like, let's be honest, if you're going to thanatology, like, yeah, you can get a good paying job, but like, you're never going to be a gazillionaire, right? This isn't the industry where you go into to say, I'm going to make as much money as humanly possible, right? This isn't you're in the wrong area of work if you're in thanatology saying this, right? But you can make a good living doing this, and that's important, right? Because this work deserves to be paid for, and it deserves to be supported and validated that way. So my advice, again, to go back to it, what's your why? Why thanatology? Why now? If you connect to that and you figure out that answer, that will be so empowering for you throughout your entire career and education. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Rachel, what about you?
Just kind of my advice was something along the lines of, if you've taken a few thanatology courses, you'll know now that there is at least one subject in self-care. There's a reason for that. Whether you do any of the jobs that you see today or anything else, there's a reason why self-care is really hit home. There are calls that I cannot unhear. You know, there are things that I've had to assist with that I can't unhear. So I need to know how to help myself through that. I need to know how to help coworkers through that. And that's just something to keep in mind. You know, in certain courses, you'll talk about burnout and things like that. It does happen. You can kind of have rose-colored glasses and think that it won't happen to you, but it's so much better to just be prepared for that in any line of work. Also, if you pair thanatology with like business, Mark, you could maybe make a lot of money. Other thing I was going to say was what your certain goals are. Try to align courses in thanatology that will apply to that. I get to use obviously the suicide theories and interventions often. I don't unfortunately get to use the grief counseling things that I took very often, because on 911 you have to be so quick that you're not really able to delve in too much with people. Still great for life. It still helped me in many other aspects, but the suicide course has really helped me. Knowing a lot of those things, I've been able to bring a lot to the table. So just kind of, there's a lot of courses there, palliative care, different things like that. Kind of take those avenues within thanatology that you think can apply for you.
Yeah, that's great. Barbara, what about you? What advice would you give?
Well, some of the things that you two have already mentioned, and self-care, huge. Even people said, well, you know, what do you do for self-care? I have to be in the woods. I'm always in the woods walking just to get it out. And like you say, you can't unhear those stories, but you're the front person. You're the person, or especially being a counselor. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, I've never told anybody this. And you can tell when they're apprehensive. What do I do? And you know, whatever you're going to tell me, I've probably heard it. So it's okay. And not to take it on. Like some people, I remember talking with a friend, she said, care, don't carry. So care about what's going on, but don't carry their stories. That let them go. Whether have a routine where you picture them going, wiping, clearing away from you. Create some ritual where you let it go. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the CMHA building in London on Huron Street, the crisis center. There's kind of like a circle in the middle. And after each client, I'd be around the circle, and they're like, over there, Barb's doing her laps. But it wasn't so much getting exercise. It was like, okay, I need to clear this. Like it's not a panic, but it's just like, okay, I need to shift things here because someone else is coming. So find some ritual that you let it go, or you clear your space. That's huge. And one thing that I don't know if I mentioned or not, but one is walking in integrity and believing in yourself. And I remember years ago, I'd gone to a conference at Vaughan, Bereavement Ontario Network. So that's another connection for people in thanatology, where you can send an email to them if you're looking for a certain resource, and you get help there. And their conferences are great. But I remember having a roommate, and she had her master's degree and I didn't. And I told her what I did, and she said, oh, when I get somebody with grief and loss, I just put my head on the table because I don't know what to do with them. In that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, oh, okay, yeah, I am good enough. So, you know, we don't feel that we are as good as what other people might see in us, because we have our own self-worth issues or whatever else. So believe in yourself. And another thing, when you're looking for a job, tell the people around you that you are looking for that job. Like Rachel might know somebody in thanatology program and say, hey, if you see a job coming up, let me know. Or, you know, or if you know a student, and say, hey, here's something. So ask somebody else. All they can do is say no, but they're like, oh yeah, hey, there's something over here. Or on Bereavement Ontario Network, I've seen job applications come up on there. So anyway, those are a few ideas. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Before we move on to the questions, I do have a brief video that I wanted to show to our attendees, and this is coming from our partners at the London Economic Development Corporation. See if I can share this here.
Sorry to interrupt. I can't hear the video, and I'm reading in the comments some other students can't hear it either.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear now? Sorry, friends. I'm hearing that you can't hear the video. Barbara, could you hear the video? No. Okay. I'm just going to stop that then, and I'll figure that out another time. But for now, we can go on to the Q&A. So let me see here. I see a question here for Mark. How would you recommend going about finding a research assistant position?
Sure. So 2 ways. The first is that when I was a King student on the King's website directly, they had advertisements for student workplace positions. And that was how I was able to actually find some employment as a research assistant. So I was actually a research assistant for the School of Social Work, and that's how I became involved with them that way. So I just went directly through the King's channel. So I highly recommend that. And then the other way was I also worked as a research assistant for Dr. Darcy Harris. And that happened kind of organically, but one of the ways that I secured that was I would reach out every summer to every single one of my professors, and I would ask them, I'm interested in pursuing my education. I'm interested in getting hands-on experience. I'm looking for summer employment. Do you have anything available? And most of the time the faculty members said no, but here was a yes, right? Just by reaching out. And that goes back to Barbara's advice too. So I highly recommend just reaching out to your teachers. And then I guess the caveat to that though, is that I also made sure that before reaching out, I had a good relationship with these teachers. At King's, I know that your professors will know your name, but I was also the student to make sure that I went to their office hours, that I asked them questions, that I actively participated in courses, that, you know, I spent the time doing the work that is required of you as a student. So I worked hard, and I clearly communicated that I was interested in going deeper with this. You know, I was interested in doing the work, and I'm interested in contributing more, and I'm passionate about this. And that's, you know, that's it. It's great for your transcript because you get a good grade. And then it's great because your professors also know you, and they know that you care, and that it's going to give you an advantage for finding a research assistant position, because sometimes they can be kind of competitive. So that's my advice. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Mark. The next question I have is for Barbara. How did you market yourself and your business to gain clientele?
Well, I had a business coach for a little while, but that is very expensive. And a few things. One, I still have a website. It just got updated, and that's called www.healingaheartsloss.com. Another way was I was told to be an expert in your field. And by doing that, I was told to start writing articles in the newspaper. Now, there's not many newspapers now, but I did that. And locally, it also went the local newspaper, and there's one that would go out weekly across, I think the weekly one went further, like across several counties. And the number of words were I think it had to be under 300 or 350 words. So that's a chart to put something out there under, you know, a small amount of words. And one person called them fridge articles, that they could cut them out and just stick them on the fridge. So every week it went out, and I would be many places I would go, people would say, oh, I read your article. Oh, I've got it stuck to the fridge. So my name was out there that way. Having a Facebook page, I don't do so much on my Facebook page. I put grief stuff on there, but I don't have a big following there. And I would also went out with, I created like little kind of like postcards in a way, and I had them in doctors' offices. I went to all the doctors' offices and said, here's what I do. And I was going to business meetings, like belonging to different groups for a while. But a lot of it now is, I don't do all of that stuff anymore, like put the posters out. It's word of mouth. People just got to know who I was, and business comes that way. So I'm not like rolling in the dough, kind of like Mark says, you're not getting rich here, but are you doing what makes your heart sing? So tell people what you do, even just in passing. Here's what I do. I have the business cards, so always have a business card on you. Use both sides of your business card. And if you have a website, you can make a website pretty quickly through, I don't know, so I had to hire somebody because I don't know that stuff. But be present and show up. So if you do stuff on the other part too, because you have a website, then and I post articles on my website every week or every 2 weeks, but regular, like going back to 2012, you'll find articles. And my website person said I had to have at least 400 words in an article on the website for Google or the search stuff, whatever. Okay, no technology coming for me here, for the search engines to pick it up. So therefore, when people are looking for me, even now, they'll call me, like, how did you find me? Oh, I looked you up on Facebook. But because you're present and all that show up all the time, the search engines find you. So be present. And one thing that would drive me nuts when I would go check on people, if their Facebook page or whatever, they haven't posted anything for 2 years. Well, is that person even still around? So if you do social media stuff, show up all the time. And again, it could just be, hey, have a good day today or something like that, but show up. So the website, the business cards, the social media stuff, and videos. I hate doing videos, but videos are supposed to be very important. So I hope that helps. And if you want to track me down, it's Barbara Saunders. You track me on my business page. You can send me an email if you have other questions at any time. I will get back to you. Thanks.
Yes, and for our students who are viewing, I'm happy to connect you with any of our panelists today. So if you wanted to reach out to me, I can facilitate that for sure. Next question here is from a student who is interested in working in a funeral home setting. And Rachel, I think you said that you could address this one, and whether a major in thanatology is sufficient or if additional education would be required.
Yeah, so there is a thanatology course where you get to do a placement. At the beginning, kind of half of the course, you get taken around to multiple different areas, and we'll have someone speak to you on what that is, multiple different counseling services, things like that. If you aren't sure what you want to do, or if you are sure and really want to try it out, I highly recommend taking that course. I did that course, and I did my placement at Westview Funeral Home, which I found to be really interesting. And I also kind of thought about being a funeral director. Also speaks to what we were talking about before about networking, getting yourself out there and showing people, this is what I have on paper, but this is me actually doing the work. This is me actually being there. And I got to help with multiple funeral services, visitations, etc. So if you think you might be interested, that is a huge step forward that you can get. As far as education, thanatology will give you an edge. However, you do need the 4-year program to be able to deal with the bodily stuff. But it's a really interesting if you can get the placement there, because you'll get multiple hours already in a funeral home, and they will probably offer to hire you if you're any good. So, so I would definitely say take that course while you're doing thanatology and get your name out there. But it'll also show you whether you're interested in that lifestyle, because being a funeral director is a lifestyle. You are on call. So definitely something to think about.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself and I hadn't. Yes, thank you very much, Rachel. Sherry, I saw a question in the chat just asking what course it is that Rachel's speaking about, where there was a co-op. Do you know offhand what that course is? You're muted, Sherry.
I'm not sure which one it is. I know which one it is. I don't know the number. I will look it up and I will post it in an hour.
All right. Now, I see we have a lot of other questions, but we are at our time. So I do want to wrap things up, because I know that all of you probably have other things that you need to get to. More Zoom meetings, of course. I want to thank our panelists all for being here today and for speaking to the students. And for anyone who did not have their question answered, you are more than welcome to get in touch with me. And if I can connect you with any of these individuals to help address those questions, I will absolutely do so. Sherry, is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off here?
No, thank you, but thank you for putting this together for us, Katrina, and thank you so much for Mark, Rachel, and Barbara for coming and speaking to us today. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. Sorry for the minor technical issues. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with anyone who wants further information about anything. So have a
Definitely.
great day, everyone. Happy Monday.
Thanks for having us. I saw some questions in there about paths to take, and guys, reach out to us. Like, we will help you discuss that, because I had no idea. So I definitely searched a lot of avenues. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, Mark.
Bye.
Okay, so I have ended the meeting for the participants. Sherry, I just want to let you know, there were a number of emails that came through from students saying they couldn't get in. I don't know if that would have been from your group or not, but I can send you the names of students who said they weren't able to get in. The session
That would be awesome.
Yeah, the session was recorded as well, and we'll do what we can to get it up on the website as quick as we can. And if you do find any of your students missed the event, we can definitely send them the link.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, everyone.
Can you
Barbara.
can you send the link to me also?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.